what I really learned about that period of time is that if you're trying to help somebody who has any sort of mental health situation going on or has a really hard relationship with their body, I do think it's quite an active choice from them to change.
Yeah.
And that was something that happened very quickly for me.
Hello, and welcome to the Grace and Form podcast, your backstage pass to the world of movement and the people and stories that shape it. In today's episode, I'm interviewing my co-host and best friend, Saskia Gregson-Williams.
Hello.
Hello, Sass.
Hi. I'm so excited about sharing this conversation. I remember when we first did it, so many things came up that I'd never shared that were so different and unique, but really kind of tell a part of the story from ballet dancer to running a business and eventually Grace and Form with you. So I think it's really cool that we get to share this story today. And as much as it's about my story, I think it's about ours too.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Sassy started her vegan cookbook at the age of 16, which is crazy. Never followed a traditional path and dealt with injuries and just did it all so gracefully. And we just can't wait to share this conversation and hope that you guys all enjoy it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I don't know about you, but growing up as a dancer, I lived in my leotards. I remember getting ready for class and always reaching for my favorite one, the one that made me feel confident, comfortable, and ready to take on whatever the day threw at me, whatever that may be. But finding that perfect mix of style, comfort, and durability for that sweat, that's not always easy, especially on a budget. That's why I love Discount Dance. It's been my go-to for years, and now, whether you're a beginner or a pro, you can find everything you need in one place. Leotards, tights, shoes, warm-ups, you name it. And the best part, they make it affordable, with sizes that fit every dancer. And here's a little treat just for you. Use code FORM20 at checkout to get 20% off your first order and score free shipping on orders over $50. So why wait? Head to discountdance.com and stock up on all your dance essentials today.
So funny being in the other shoes, like sitting here as a guest and not interviewing.
You're the guest right now.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So you obviously were born in England.
Oh, we're getting right to it.
We were getting right to
it.
it.
Oh, yeah. That is where I was born. Yes.
I'm diving in.
I was born in Windsor.
In Windsor.
I was born in Windsor.
Beautiful.
I don't think I've ever been there since, but yeah, in England.
Okay.
Yes.
And then where did your journey start as a ballerina?
I think that I was born in England and I lived there until I was about 6 or 7.
Okay.
And I remember doing like baby ballet and things like that.
Did your mom put you into that or dad?
Yeah,
or?
no, I think my mum did and I liked it. And I think honestly I really liked it because I was good at it. You know, like I won.
You were a jumping bean.
Yes, I was good at it. I knew I was good at it. I did like some competitions and things and I would always be first or second.
Yeah.
And then when I went for those like RAD exams, so the Royal Academy exams, they had this, in retrospect, it's like so mean, but the girls get a colour based on like how good they are. So if you're pink, you're the best, then blue. And it's like the order in which you run into the room. And I was always pink. And you know me now. And like obviously that would have really, like little Sassy would have absolutely loved that. So I did it there. And then, I think my mum put me into it, but would never have known that like this was something that would have kind of taken me on such a journey in my life for sure. She put me into it and was amazing, would always take me there. And I really loved it. I loved ballet. And I did it just as a little bit of fun. Never thought it would be something that I would continue through my teens and into my adult life at all. But coming to the States and moving there when I was 6 or 7 and going to Yuri's where we met, that just shifted my perspective on ballet entirely, made me realize that it could be a career.
Yeah, it was very serious.
Yeah, I think that was also the kind of age where you start to look at like what the rest of your life might be like.
Yeah,
and actually,
6 or 7.
Yeah.
At your age. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, at 6 or 7, you're like, what might my life be like?
You were very mature at a very young age.
Yes, I definitely think that I
6 years old.
Even at times, maybe I wasn't mature, but I like to think I was pretty mature.
No, you were pretty mature.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to say it because you became my best friend.
Yeah, and I was the older one.
Yeah, and you were the older one.
I did enjoy talking to your mom a lot when we had play dates.
This is what I heard recently. You said this to someone recently, and I had no idea that was the situation. I thought that you were just there for me, and now I'm realizing
I was there for you, but then, when you would go and like...
Go to bed early.
Yeah. I would talk to your mom.
You would talk to my mom. But yeah, so I went to ballet school in LA with you, and that, shifted my mindset on the fact that actually maybe it could be a career.
Yeah. And then where did you go after you left Yuri's? Because you moved back to England, right?
Yeah, we moved back, and it was a really hard time to move to a new country in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that kind of like, it was interesting. In many ways, it gave me so much because it gave me ballet, and it gave me friendships that really interestingly, like some of my closest, most like authentic seems like a silly word to say, but most genuine, deep soul sister friendships were made in the few years that I lived out in LA.
Yeah, it's true. You have a couple friends that
I have a couple friends that I can sit down with, and I just feel like even if it was just a few years together, we understand each other on a totally different level to many of my other wonderful friendships, but it's just different. And it's amazing.
Yeah, there's something that I feel like is very special in ballet, and in maybe not just ballet, but movement in general, that I find, and you can tell me what you feel about this, but I always find it really like a very, very deep, very special relationship that you have when you find friends that are in movement as well.
Yeah.
Because there's almost like a layer to you that is even more open and vulnerable because it's your absolute passion, or even if it's not, but you're putting yourself out there constantly. You're really young, you're in a learning environment, it's quite scary. And so you bond with these people in kind of a scary atmosphere that like creates a really solid glue, and it's almost like a family. I don't know what your experience was.
I think that's completely accurate. I think that when you're bonding with people in a format that like is about movement or anything like that, there's already like a layer of vulnerability or like pretense that you've taken off.
Yeah.
So you're much more real with those people. You get to the
Nitty-gritty.
core of who they are quicker.
Totally.
So that happened for me, and those friendships, like you, it's like that time was so fundamental to me growing.
Yeah.
But it was also really hard. Like ballet had been my entire life before that. Different. It was like the fun thing. It was like I was the girly girl. I loved ballet. I loved wearing just pretty things. And I went to school in the States, and that was actually really hard. Like, going as this little English person at 7 and being different.
Yeah.
I was in a year in my school, like everybody like played soccer, and I would leave school early to go and dance. Like my mum worked it out with the school that I could skip sports and go to ballet with Yuri. And I was just different. Like I did things differently already at that age, and I felt different.
Yeah.
Like it was weird. It was displacing. We've spoken about like being from a different place, being an expat.
Yeah.
And from a young age, like you're really figuring yourself out. And I think ballet was like my safety net. Like that was it was a bit different coming to Yuri's, but it was still like a way of doing something or continuing to do the same thing, where the rest of my world was like massively changing.
Yeah. Did you ever feel isolated in your school because you were a little bit different?
I did, and I was bullied, like for sure. Like it was really hard. My sister is so interesting because I've blocked a lot of it out, but Sadie, when she tells me about like this one time that I went to this girl's party that was at my school who was like very popular, and like she invited me along, and I was so excited to go because I hadn't felt like I was at all like the popular one, and not to say that I am popular, but I've always felt in my friendship circles like I'm liked.
Yeah.
And I like being good at things.
Yeah.
So I like being good at being liked.
Yeah.
And I was not that at school. Like nobody really got me because I was this dancer and all the things I said. So got invited to this like popular girls party. And I went, and it was like a swimming party.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were 7, but I remember going, and I came in like a normal swimsuit, and everybody there made fun of me. They sat me next to like the brother. Nobody spoke to me, and I ended up going into the bathroom on this little cell phone that I think somebody had given, like my mum had maybe given me just in case I needed anything.
Yes.
And I called my sister in like floods of tears. And I don't remember it because I was so little, and probably those hard things you like forget on purpose, intentionally.
Of course, you block it out.
Yeah.
Your body's fighting or protecting itself.
Yeah, exactly. And I called her just in bits. And I had a really hard time at that school.
Why were you bullied?
I think just because I was different, like with the ballet stuff, and people just said mean things, and it was a hard time.
Yeah.
And my parents tried to get involved by like, getting the class teacher to, try and, like, I think they spoke to the class teacher at the time and kind of explained what was going on.
Yeah.
And he, in the best intentions, made it so much worse because
Yeah.
I was really into things like poetry, and I used to write my own poetry. And he, he took me aside one day, and I mean, side note, I had a huge crush on this teacher. Like, I think he was like my awakening to like being like, oh my goodness, there's a man. But anyways, he took me to the side out of class, and he was like, I heard you do poetry. And I was like, yes. And I read him some poetry. Anyways, the next day in class, he got me to stand up and read my inner emotions and feelings to my entire like 3rd grade class.
Oh my gosh.
Mortifying.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So embarrassing. But yeah, so I had a really small, like, little dorky kind of group of friends at that school. I very rarely like intermixed with the kind of like the popular people.
Yeah.
And ultimately actually became homeschooled during that time. I convinced my parents that like ballet was my passion. I wanted to be a dancer. The only way to do this, like, look at these dancers, they were all homeschooled.
Yeah.
And I think I did that for multiple reasons. I think one, I genuinely did want to be a dancer. That was like, I wanted to be the best, and I saw the routes that other people were taking.
Yeah.
And people around me. And then the other reason was I was really, I felt really out of place. I felt really insecure, felt like I didn't belong, didn't want to be there, and was like trying to find every way to be in a position where I didn't have to feel those things. I mean, I tried everything. I remember we lived 10 minutes away from the school.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, Indy, because we were great friends at the time, but I wouldn't have told you this. Anyways, we lived 10 minutes from the school.
Yes.
But I thought the way to make friends was if I was on the school bus. Did I tell you this?
You've told me this, but
Yeah.
please tell it again, because this is the cutest thing.
It's so sweet and so sad.
Yeah.
And I like want to cry for my little self. But I was like, if I get on the school bus, I'll make friends. But the school bus, weirdly, even though we were 10 minutes away from school, it started with my house. So I had to be picked up at like 5:50 a.m. And then I had to go on like an hour and a half trip around to get to the Palisades and the school. Oh my goodness. So I was on this thing, and I mean, I like spoke to no one. Nobody spoke to me.
You never made the friends
I
on the
never
bus.
made the friends. Anyways, in the end, I was like, Mom, actually, it'd be nice if I could lie in. But also, it used to be crazy because I used to have this teacher called Edward, this dance instructor who would come to the house and be stretching me at 5 a.m.
Wow.
But for my 5:50 bus. I'm like
commitment.
8 years old.
Commitment.
I was so committed. I was
And
committed to every cause.
everything.
Ballet, friends. I was like, I need to succeed.
Did you feel like your parents were supportive? Like, did they support you in your ballet journey, or did they push you to other things as well? Like, what was your understanding as a young person with your parents' relationship with your ballet?
Yeah, I think.
And your school.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, it goes hand in hand. You know, some people need to make really good grades to be able to do what they love, you know, as an extracurricular activity. But what were your parents like?
Well, both my mum and dad are super creative, didn't go to school in a traditional way. My mum was an actress and my dad's a composer, both super creative and artistic.
Yeah.
My dad has done incredibly well in his career, but was probably like the naughtiest kid at school. And that was just not a priority for him.
Yeah.
And my mum's passion was just always like, she just loved her kids like expressing themselves. Like,
Yeah.
she wanted me to take the sick days. She
Yeah.
wanted to go and explore. Like, she just was like a bag of fun.
Yeah, totally.
And so her way with ballet was like, she just really wanted, she knew I loved it. She was going to do everything she possibly could do to make that happen for me. And like my mum, to like her absolute credit, did like everything she could do to make it possible for me. Like,
Yeah.
would drive hours and hours to do whatever it took because I was passionate. She wasn't
Yeah.
like a dance mum in the fact that she was pushy.
Yeah.
She was like, I see what my little girl wants.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help her
Yeah,
because I
get
can.
there. Yeah.
And like she's able to. So with school, I think actually I had an interesting conversation with my dad. I think he wishes that he'd pushed me harder to continue doing my schooling in the way, just because it would have been nice
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And I agree, like I'd have loved to have not had some of the knowledge gaps I do because of the interesting route that I took.
Yeah.
But really they did an incredible job at like allowing me to follow that a passion that I loved so much.
Yeah.
Was clearly okay at, because I was doing the things and moving in a way that was a trajectory of getting
you
to
were
where I
moving
wanted to be.
forward. Yeah.
But yeah, they were amazing. And like I said, like organizing a stretch trainer exercise person to come and teach me at 5 a.m. before I'd go to school, and then taking me out of school and then going, you know, all the
Crazy.
things. So they were
Dedication.
incredibly supportive, and I think my little self realized that actually I could be quite conniving in getting where I wanted to be too with their support.
You are very persuasive.
I was very persuasive. Oh, hugely. Like, I mean, I fully sat down with them about, you know, when I wanted to be taken out of school to be homeschooled and said, you know what we'll do? We'll do a pros and cons list. And I'd like planned the pros to be like far outweigh the cons. You know, like I knew at 7, I was like, okay, so I have to be pragmatic. I have to let them speak. But also, you know, I'm going to show them why.
You're very intelligent,
You know.
so you're clever.
Yeah, and conniving. At that age, I was
And
like
witty, very
sneaky
witty.
and you know, I knew what I wanted is the point. And it was at that time, it was, I want to be a ballet dancer.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever I can to get there. And so, yeah, we were homeschooled for a while. And my mum found LA tough because she wanted to be back with family.
Yeah.
And at that age, yeah, I mean, I didn't really care where we were. I just was on that little journey. I felt I'd already moved, so we moved back to the UK.
Right.
Yeah.
And then where did you go from the UK? Did you continue your ballet training?
Yeah, so we started with, I auditioned for a few different ballet schools.
Okay.
And I got into Elmhurst, which is like the Birmingham Royal Ballet's lower school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I got into a few other ones that were a little smaller. And then there's this one called Young Dancers Academy, which was very small, very boutique. But we knew a few people that had gone there and were beautiful dancers. And it was run by this really brilliant teacher, Anna de Boisson. So I decided to go there. But this kind of goes to my mum again and like the commitment to helping me. Like sometimes it'd be a 9-hour trip for her to get me to that ballet school. She would drive 3 hours up, 3 hours down in rush hour traffic. And again, because I was too young to take the bus on my own.
That's
and
insane.
eventually she would drop me off on the outskirts of London and let me take the bus on my own. And I'd kind of text her saying I got there. And then I was able to live with my sister because she was 10 years older than me or 12 years older than me. And I actually got a cushy deal on her rent by like allowing her little sister to come and live with her 3 days of the week, which must have been so uncool in her early 20s. Like, sorry guys, I'm looking after my 12-year-old sister.
Such a cutie.
Yeah, I mean, I think she definitely was like, yep, it was an interesting one. But so that's what I did. I went to Young Dancers Academy and lived with my amazing big sister Sadie for a while and commuted back and forth and did that for, I want to say, it felt like forever, but I actually believe it might have just been a year and a half.
And how old were you at this time?
I must have been like 11.
Wow, that's young.
Yeah, very young.
Yeah, you really started to leave your home very, very young. I mean, even though you were with your sister, it's so young to be commuting by yourself, and
it's nuts. Like I
when
used
you
to
think of it.
I'd have funny memories. Like we used to go and do ballet at Dance Works. There was this like she rented the studio, the teacher we had, and then afterwards I'd walk down, I must have been 11 or 12, to Vogue House where my sister worked at the time, and then I knew the receptionist at Vogue House really well. He'd give me like a Glamour or a Teen Vogue or whatever, and I'd just sit there waiting for Sadie to be done with work, and then she'd take me home and cook me dinner.
Oh,
yeah,
it's very sweet.
So sweet.
So you had a very, very supportive family.
So supportive.
Yeah, which is very lovely.
It was amazing. And it was the first like foray into leaving home, that experience. And then from there, I just felt like I wasn't being pushed enough and I wanted to go somewhere where like I could be boarding and I could be there the whole time. And that's when I auditioned again for Elmhurst and I went there.
You went full time and
I went
stayed
full
over.
time and I
How
boarded
old
there.
were you at that time?
12.
12. Wow. It's so young.
It is young. And, you know, actually, interestingly, these memories are funny because I don't think about them very often.
Yeah.
But I went to Elmhurst and I went there in year 8 and the school starts at year 7. So I was there a year later.
Okay.
And again, I had this really interesting experience of joining a school later than everybody else.
Yep.
And I think it was one of 2 people that joined that year. And it was like, again, everybody knew each other. Everybody was best friends. Yeah. And I was like the odd one out.
Late to the party a bit.
Yeah. And again, like I think I spent a lot of my time there, like trying to prove myself, trying to be cool, trying to be like the people, you know, the one people liked.
So funny because I think you're the coolest.
I love that. And you know what? It's so funny. I love that you do and I appreciate it. But you know, it's very interesting because I think a big theme in my life has always been that I felt like I had to really prove myself and make people like me. And I always felt this huge like void of feeling like people would find out that I have no friends or I'm not cool or I'm not. And it wasn't the truth, but it was really certainly something that was a story that I told myself.
Interesting. Yeah.
Up until maybe actually when I moved to Chicago. I think that's when everything changed for me in terms of friends, community. Before that, I felt very much alone. Like I had I've had friends, but they were very like scattered.
Yeah, even me, I was not there. We were long distance best friends.
Yeah, and so nothing was
Committed
there.
relationship,
I
but
felt
not with
super
each other.
lonely. I felt like some of the friends that I had from little school, they were at boarding school with like tons of their girlfriends.
Yeah.
They were having a great time, and they had boyfriends. I mean, I genuinely was like, when will I meet? Like, when will I have my first boyfriend or my first kiss?
Yeah.
Like, I was a dancer. That was what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like, and so everything else around that made me feel so insecure.
Yeah.
Like, I just had to constantly almost like put on a face. Like, I was confident when actually inside I was just like, I have to be the best, do the best, so that people like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that definitely was a big thing in my time at Elmhurst. Like, I tried that, and I was also in the year above. Because of ballet, they put me in the year above where I should have been.
Yeah.
And then and then they wanted to move me up another year ballet, but they couldn't with my academics. And so I would like toy with both of the years, but I was younger than everybody else. And at that age, like, people really let you know.
Yeah, they make fun of you. I get it.
Yeah. So that was tough. I had a really hard time there as well, interestingly. And yeah, it was tough. And again, weirdly, like, a lot of the memories are kind of like
Blocked out.
Like, I mean, I made some good friends. I had some very silly times, and I was only there really for, I think, 3/4 of a year before I left.
Yeah, and then where did you go after that? Is that when you went to Chicago?
No, I then got taught by this wonderful teacher called Vanessa Palmer, who was a
Yes,
former
right.
first soloist at Royal Ballet, and she started doing independent training, and it was actually Tamara Rojo who recommended her to me.
Yes.
So I had a day with Tamara where I was speaking to her, and she suggested Vanessa Palmer.
Yeah.
And also Jose Martin, who I went on to train with after that,
Yeah.
and in conjunction. And I was with Vanessa for years, and that was phenomenal because she became like family. She was like the biggest supporter, and she taught me how to dance and the technique and improved my skill in such an incredible way because it was so hands-on, just one-to-one all day, every day.
Private lessons, right? Yeah.
It was, but again, it was private lessons, so
Yeah.
I was on my own.
Yeah, you were on your own again.
Yeah, so I was on my own doing that for quite a few years, and I would do homeschool again. I went to do homeschool again, so I would do that in the morning, and I'd go up to London. I'd do like 6 hours dancing, and I'd come back and maybe have an hour of history or an hour of English or whatever else. I did that for quite a few years. I mean, I took my GCSEs, which are the exams you normally take when you're 16, at 14.
Yep, I remember.
I was so done with the homeschool. I was like, I'm going to just do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get good grades, and then I'm going to be done.
It's crazy.
So I convinced my parents that that was what we should do, probably with another pros and cons list.
Yeah, so it's a very intense childhood, really.
Yeah, it was, actually. Yeah, I mean, it was
You
very
grew up
much
fast.
It was driven by passion.
Yeah.
I grew up fast. I was very alone.
Yeah.
But by my own choices.
Yeah.
You know, I could have absolutely had a different childhood, but I knew what I wanted to do, and the decisions that we made. Yeah, I felt really definitely very alone, and I think that 100% like kind of manifested in my early teens, like emotionally. I went to San Francisco Ballet School.
Yes.
And when I was there, just San Francisco for the summer.
Right.
I was there for maybe 6-8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I met another dancer there who was older than me, beautiful dancer. Like, I looked at her and I was like, you're incredible. She was like the kind of dancer that like almost looks like she's floating, ethereal. And she turned to me one day, and I was becoming really good friends with her. Or maybe she wouldn't have said friend. She was almost like helping me, like guiding me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I was speaking to her about like how I could look like her, and she told me that she just drank vitamin water.
Oh boy.
And I have to tell you that it actually set off maybe something like the craziest few years for me.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like, at that time I'd been very normal in terms of the way that I thought of my body.
And how old were you, just to put it into context?
13.
Yeah, so it's a very difficult time for your body. It's changing. I mean, it's a beautiful time.
Yeah.
But it's also difficult as a human being growing.
Completely. Yeah, 100%. And I was 13, and she kind of said to me, vitamin water. And I listened completely, and I was like, okay, great.
Well, you were also
Makes
very
sense.
driven and dedicated.
I want to look like you. I want to dance like you.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do what you do and be as respected and adored as you are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started to kind of copy that behavior. And as you know, with any kind of like habitual patterns, it becomes kind of ingrained and obsessive.
Yeah, wow.
And and I think I struggled very much for the next few years on, I lost weight drastically because, I mean, if you're not eating very much, you do.
Yeah.
And the mental health aspect of that was hard because not only did that happen, but I also, about a year later, went to Morocco, and I caught a food poisoning called Campylobacter.
Yes.
That really was terrible for my gut, and it meant that I couldn't really hold any food down for about 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
So the two things combined meant that I was like a little wafer.
Yeah.
And I was getting compliments and adored, and people were like, you look incredible, like amazing.
Yeah,
like,
which is really not helpful
which
at all.
is not helpful when you're going through that. And that was hard, and it really taught me that period of time. I mean, I was, again, 13, 14, maybe like I kind of came out of that period when I was about 15.
Yeah.
But it was some of my darkest days, because I genuinely remember thinking, how will I ever not think like this?
Yeah.
How will I ever not be like obsessed with the way that I look and my body?
Yeah.
And
you're in front of the mirror too.
And what I'm eating,
Yeah.
and like when I'm going to eat it, and all these things. And it's so interesting, because I rarely talk about it on the basis that my mum once came to me, I think it was about 2 years ago, and she said, an old friend of yours has a very bad eating disorder, and maybe you could speak to her, because when you were little, you really went through that.
Yeah.
And you came out the other side, and like that meant that kind of shift that you were in then, like you can't even think that it's you anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. I mean, it was decade ago, but it's so funny. It does feel like a totally different person. Like I couldn't even put myself in that mind. But I remember at the time, and for anybody that's going through anything that kind of holds you or is a weight to you, that it absolutely felt impossible that I would have ever gotten through that, or ever would have found a love for my body. Because during that time, even in the time that I was trying to become healthy again, I really disliked my body.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting, because it was in those years of starting to think about upper schools or companies.
Yeah.
And I was having to have this body that would work for me, whilst also not looking after it at all.
Yeah.
And having this very difficult relationship. And I don't envy at all my parents for this position, but I both needed to be healthy again, but not too healthy, because I still needed to look the part to audition.
Yeah, right.
And I remember that being very difficult, you know, starting to eat normally again, and then look a little bit different. And then actually, you probably need to lose a little bit of weight, the people around you. That balance was so difficult. And at that time, there was really zero support for dancers.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Even the nutritionists that I went to at the time didn't understand how to speak to a dancer or an athlete who doesn't just need to kind of become healthy, also needs to be able to work hard.
Right.
And so that was a really interesting time. I think in retrospect, it was probably like the hardest period of my childhood was those years, because they were so lonely.
Yeah.
Because I was alone, dancing the whole time. There was a goal, but I felt so alone in like how to get there. And I was trying
in your
hard.
head too.
In my head.
Was
completely.
there anything when you saw, just for anybody who's listening who's maybe gone through something similar, or, you know, hopefully, you know, is coming out of it, or anything with that you heard from your nutritionist that you went to that you feel like didn't help you at all? Like that you could advise to not?
I think, honestly, what I really learned about that period of time is that if you're trying to help somebody who has any sort of mental health situation going on, or has a really hard relationship with their body, I do think it's quite an active choice from them to change.
Yeah.
And that was something that happened very quickly for me. I just suddenly was like, actually, no, I really need to. There was, in conjunction with being injured, I need to get this injury better. I need to empower myself, and I need to use food as a tool. And that changed everything for me.
Yeah, because your mindset shifted.
My mindset shifted entirely.
And your body gave out.
And my body gave out. And I was laden with stress at a really early age. I think it happens to a lot of women. I think that ballet heightens that, certainly.
When, again, you're facing a mirror.
And you're facing a mirror all day,
and
every
everybody
day.
Else's opinions of you, unless you can not pay attention to them, but that's very difficult too.
Yeah, and you're so young, and you're going through so much.
So young.
So what I would say is about that period of time is I just learned that, like, I think you do, given all the support that I had, and I'm sure many people do, you choose.
Yeah.
Like, it's always a choice.
It's a choice.
It is a choice, even if it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It happens. Yeah. So I think that happened in my childhood for sure. Was a very, very big deal at the time, but I moved through it, and it was wonderful because it really taught me the value of loving yourself.
Totally.
The value of actually having a very solid foundation with your own body, because really that was born upon other people's opinions about my body dancing.
Yeah.
And my need to to appeal to that.
Yeah.
And it was probably when I was about 15 that I actually started to realize, I mean, again, very young, I started to realize the importance of having a good relationship and nurturing that and actually working on it, like the muscles that we use when we're dancing, like really actually taking a step back and thinking, okay, how am I going to ensure that my mind is as healthy as my body?
Yeah.
Because if my mind's healthy, my body will be too, because I'll treat it well.
And what were some of the tools that you found other than your choice making and your decision making that helped you with it?
Education around food in general and why it's so important. At such an early age, I think part of a dance curriculum should be nutrition, but not in a very blanket way. Actually really understanding how it can support you and what it does for your body. It's not there. And that was the reason I believe that was the route that I took, because that was what I was told to do by another dancer who looked away I wanted to look, was older than me.
Yeah, it's what you saw.
And I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
So I think education is the most important thing for young people.
Yeah.
Really understanding it. And also, actually, I think I had someone to speak to about what I was feeling, because the root of all of it just comes back to wanting to be the best.
Yeah.
And feeling really alone and feeling like the only thing that I was really good at was dancing.
Yeah,
and I needed to
totally.
be the best at that. This podcast is an extension of our app, Grace and Form, where we bring ballet classes and ballet-inspired movement practices to you from beginner to pro, so everybody and everybody can experience our love of dance in their own home.
Absolutely. And we want to share everything that makes us feel amazing with you. And you don't even need a studio. And that's what's so wonderful about it. You can feel good anywhere.
So download the app, get a 7-day free trial, come move with me and Indy and some of our wonderful guests and incredible teachers.
We can't wait to see you.
I think we all have that in different ways, and it fruits and shows to the world in different ways. But that's what I learned during that time, and it gave me such a great footing for my later teen years.
Right.
Because it allowed me to go, okay, I understand now, like, what I need to be doing to make sure that I'm good, to make sure that I'm healthy, to make sure that my mind's always happy. And it really created an understanding and a foundation of love for myself. And we all have our bad days, but I think that those years helped solidify for me the practices that would help me forever actually feel so grateful for the vessel that carries me through life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ways that I could connect with it.
Yeah, and you came up from this darkness that you felt too with yourself. You went in and then you came up, which is, very incredible, and it means that you're a very strong human being, and also your mind is just so sharp and you're curious. So you looked out for things and always wanted to learn, clearly.
Yeah.
And it's so important that when you're young and you're going through it, or even asking for help.
Yeah.
I'm sure just like, coming to terms with what you were going through was probably so difficult. Like I remember, you reaching out to me and telling me a bit, and I'm sure it was frightening to do so, but you did it. And like once you admit, I feel like sometimes it's like just takes the choice to seek out just one person to even say one word to about what you're going through, and then it's easier every time you do it.
Yeah, and I think to be honest with you, I think that like at that time, the difference between having an eating disorder and being on a diet, there was no difference in the ballet world. I'm pretty sure that everyone can say that. It's just the difference is actually what it's doing to your body.
Totally.
And how far you've taken it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the huge difference, and then being able to turn it around. Actually, I think from that dark time, it gave me the most incredible understanding of actually needing to have like multiple pillars in my life that held me up. Like I wasn't just the dancer, and I really wanted to explore other things. And what happened at that time was interesting, because I became very injured with an injury
Chicago,
I'm still 14.
Still in England. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
15. I got an injury at this time, and so I was off all the time. And then I decided to look into other things, and I was already so interested in food.
Yeah.
And in a really healthy way. Like I was interested in food because I was very creative, and I was like, I actually really like the idea of developing these recipes and like getting in the kitchen. And the reason I did that was because of an injury. And I had these two kind of parallel things going on, where I was very injured. I just recovered from a very bad food poisoning.
Right.
I was realizing I needed to look after myself because I had a physical ailment and a mental ailment.
Yes.
Both of them happening at the same time. Okay, Sass, don't just be the dancer, explore other things that you like to do. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with cooking. What cooking did for my mental health, it slowed me down, it connected me to my body, what I was putting into it.
Yeah.
It just like linked everything up in a way that little 12, 13-year-old Sass didn't understand.
Yeah.
I felt like the two things were working against each other. They weren't moving me in the same direction into a healthy space, physically, in body and mind. And I just loved being in the kitchen, creating and cooking. And that created an entire different adventure for me.
Yeah.
Where I loved it and I felt quite good at it. And I developed like a following of people that loved to cook the recipes I was cooking.
Yep, I tried all of them.
You tried all of them. You were part of the community. And that's when I started becoming the cookbook author that I was. But I was the food editor at Hip and Healthy, which is my sister's magazine. And I started there. I was 15 at the time.
Wow.
And then I launched Naturally Sassy, which was my online like recipe platform. And I loved it. I went on such a mad journey. I got a publishers, Penguin Random House, published my book.
So incredible.
When I was 16. Yeah, it was an Amazon bestseller.
So great.
And I was loving life. I was like, I've got something else I'm good at.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was still very much rooted in the fact that, yes, yay, people can see I'm good at something.
Yeah.
I'm good at it. Yay.
That's your reoccurring theme.
Always.
Yeah.
But I think that for a lot of us, it's like just proving as much to other people as to ourselves that we're worthy of something.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, I've done it. I've done something that people can be proud of. My parents can be proud of. All those hours, all that hard work and money spent on my ballet and all these things, like they can be proud that I've done something with it. Even when I'm injured, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
So the cookbook was great, and I had a limited edition or a run of all these energy bars that were in Whole Foods, and I sold them into Ocado.
The flapjacks.
Yeah, my dad calls them the biscuits. I mean,
Oh,
they
really?
weren't. Yeah, they were never biscuits. It's like ongoing joke, but. Yeah, it was mad. I was running this business at 16. I was dancing during the day. I was writing a cookbook till 2 a.m. at night. I was sampling all these energy bars. I had a factory in my hometown where these two people were working for us.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was wild. And then we outsourced it to a bigger factory. And then, I moved to Chicago at 17. My cookbook came out, and 10 days later, I moved to Chicago.
Wow, so you really changed. You had a big change to go back to ballet.
Yeah, I was dancing all the way through, but I was injured a lot.
Right.
So it gave me more space to do things. But I auditioned for Joffrey, got in, and I went out there to continue my training. And it was a totally different experience. I'd had 2 steroid injections in my ankles, so I was pain-free for a little bit of time.
For a little bit of time.
And I went out there, and for the first time in my childhood, in my younger years, I suddenly just had a blast socially.
So fun.
I was having so much fun.
You were with tons of friends.
Tons of friends.
Yeah.
I had such a good time. Ballet was community again.
Yeah.
I loved being in such an incredibly inspiring group of people. I made wonderful friends there, and I just fell back in love with ballet because the injuries I wasn't feeling them. They were very much still there, but wasn't feeling them at the time. And then B, I suddenly had this like, oh, I feel like a kid, you know, and this is so nice.
And you were with people.
I was with
I'm
people.
sure that must have been so difficult to be basically alone and just with your parents for so many years.
Crazy.
Of like your craft, with your schooling, kind of in every area of your life. It was quite isolated.
Super.
And so not because of any other reason than, you were really dedicated to what you were doing and it felt like that's what you needed to do. But it must have felt like just a freaking blast to go and be with other humans and share the love and passion for your craft that you were doing with ballet. And also, I feel like it's so helpful to learn from others when you're surrounded by them. And it also takes,
huge.
I don't know how you felt, but it always takes a little bit of pressure off of my own self when I'm surrounded by people, not because I don't want to do really well, but you're with others. Yeah. And so even like facilitating the energy to be able to dance, you feel everyone's energy around you. So like all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm like an Energizer bunny. I can do anything.
Oh yeah, no, completely. You feel other people's energy, you take it on, and it continues to motivate you. So I loved it. I love Chicago so much, and I was there for a year. Unfortunately, my injury after about 4 or 5 months, steroid injection wore off, and I was again on the sidelines watching my friends continue to improve.
Right.
And I was having, I was being pulled out of the shows that we were doing and all of that stuff, and it was really hard again. But the difference there was one of my pillars was up. I had friends, like I had community, and I had such a strong basis there that really helped me. And I also had another passion. So I had started to kind of build these things up that would help me when one of them fell down.
Yeah, which is so important.
And I started to really learn the importance of it then. So Chicago was really pivotal time for me. It taught me so much about myself.
Yeah.
I met the most wonderful people. And going back to the UK afterwards, I had decided that I was going to stop dancing. I had spent so long fighting this injury and being on and off. And truthfully, the love for ballet had dimmed because it was just riddled with so much pain.
Yeah.
And it was hard because for years my identity had been the ballerina.
Yeah.
And to leave that was so scary because it just felt like I had worked so hard to feel comfortable with myself as a certain person. But the thing that I was incredibly lucky as I had built Naturally Sassy to a point where it wasn't such a kind of trustful, it was just a gentle slide.
Yeah.
And I had found that through my injuries, I had been able to develop certain ways to keep myself fit and healthy that I knew would be so interesting to other dancers and other people, kind of all walks of life. So for me, I was excited by the prospect at that point. Like it had been too hard for me to quit before then.
Yeah.
I had needed that kind of runway to kind of come to terms with it.
Right.
But by the time that happened, I was ready because I felt like I actually had something really interesting to share that could bring together the ballet training that I'd done for years.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't feel like a waste.
Yeah. And you also, I remember you did a lot of courses in training and in physical therapy and in nutrition. So I'm sure all of that kind of tied together all in this platform that you could control. At this point, but it also created community and opportunities for you to go and help other people and meet so many people. Like, I feel like you've met so many people through Naturally Sassy by doing workshops and just connecting.
Completely.
And it's been such a lovely journey to see you on, just being like the most incredible person that can connect with anybody. And it's so funny because it comes from, what I'm hearing and what I, didn't understand as fully now as I do now is how isolated you felt. Yeah. When I see you, I feel like you're the most social person I've ever met. And
well, I am. I'm really social now.
You're so social and like so able to, you're just so open and able to talk to anybody. And I find it so inspiring and courageous. And it's so cool and interesting to see the journey that you made to get there because, you don't always, even if like the popular people like were able to also still be social and stuff, like you really went through a lot of things and it allowed you to help other people as well. Yeah. And form such incredible strong bonds because of where you came from.
Yeah, I think I was always somebody who loved chatting to everyone, was very social, very talky, like just so interested in other people. Yeah. But I think that, like I've said, it was hard because I just did not find my tribe or people that accepted me. Yeah. And I think it is a wonderful thing now in my adult life to look back on and think, I know that there will be so many people of all ages that just like haven't maybe found their people. Yeah. Like yet. Yeah. Or friendships. And there were certainly times where I literally can remember Googling like how to make friends, how to make more friends. Yeah. And it's like, I know I'm a normal enough person. Yeah. I might be a little silly and bonkers sometimes.
Which is great.
But I'm pretty okay. Yeah. And why can't I find these people in my life? Yeah. And it can just all shift on a dime. And then all of a sudden, like, I just am so grateful by the abundance of friendships I have in my life. Yeah. They are maybe one of my most treasured parts of my life. Yeah. I have so many wonderful friends, and little Sass would not have thought that she would create that for herself.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, what would you advise little Sass to, like, if you could go back and tell your little self something about how amazing you feel now with your friendships, is there any advice that you would give or some tips or something to hold on?
Yeah, I think that it's tough. Like, I definitely put myself in a more isolated position as a little person. But even when you move to a new city, you have that experience. Like, how do I make friends again? Totally. And I was speaking to one of my very good friends about this recently because she moved to a new city. And when she first got there, she was like, how am I going to make friends?
Yeah.
So my friend Jess moved to
Yes.
Salt Lake.
Yeah, right.
How am I going to make friends?
Yeah.
And she was like, this is going to, and then within, 6 months, she made the effort. She put herself out there, has the most incredible group of friends.
So cool.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Just
like,
takes putting yourself
it
out
takes
there, but
putting yourself out
but
there
it's
and
hard.
patience.
Yeah, patience.
And
I feel like
patience.
that's a big one.
And I think it's incredible because it's so inspiring to put yourself out there in a way, because it's like dating. It's like vulnerable,
Yeah.
You're having to sit in front of a person
Totally.
and be like me.
Yeah.
like me, listen to me.
What question should I ask?
Yeah.
And
I think the most important thing that I've learned is, like, in every way in my life, being myself, being completely unfiltered as me, has always really served me. Anytime I felt like I've had to put on a face to be something for friendships in my life, they haven't been the friends that are really my people,
I love that.
And so just being myself in every way has served me fully in that. But I think if you're finding that you're in a time in your life where maybe you could kind of feel that you wish you had a bigger amount of community, my best piece of advice is just to continue doing the things that you love and that light you up, because oftentimes you'll find community there.
Yeah.
Like for me, health and wellness.
Yeah.
That is a huge area of passion for me.
Yeah.
Dance, the people in those communities are people that I want to be friends with.
Yeah, totally.
And so you go and you put yourself out there and you continue to do those things.
Yeah.
And those people come. But it is patience. And also just knowing that it's not you. Sometimes it's just timing and life.
Yeah. And just finding ways to accept yourself.
Yeah.
And then those people will come.
Absolutely.
And putting yourself out there too is definitely helpful. Like taking the steps to just be a little courageous.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
Way.
It's difficult. So after you went back to England after Chicago, right?
Yeah, I went out. Yeah, moved back home.
You moved back home, and then you moved again to LA at some point?
I moved back to LA. I've done a little bit of going
Just
back
done
and
a
forth. I've been between the UK and the US my entire life. Somebody once said to me, when are you going to choose? And I think this is what I've chosen. I think this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, no, not the US, doing that.
Back and forth.
Between neither place and both.
I think so.
It's kind of like both are home to me fully. I have incredible friends in both.
Yeah.
And family in both.
Yeah.
And I do love that. And I moved back to LA and I lived a few years out in the US. And then I moved back to the UK during the pandemic.
Okay.
That was an interesting time because it was just like recalibrating. And I have to say, it was maybe some of the most pivotal moments for me because it was the first time in my life that I felt directionless. Like I had felt such drive up until maybe about a year pre-pandemic.
Wow.
I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew what I was building. I knew what I was growing. And I felt so comfortable and secure in that.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realized that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, what I was trying to build. I didn't know where I wanted to be. And I felt like I was just flailing. And the most interesting thing happened, which is normally in that scenario for me, I would quickly plan and build and grow and try and create something.
Yeah.
And I really just decided to sit with it for a very long time. I was like, I actually think this is a good thing for me. I don't know why I thought that. I think in retrospect, it fully was.
You obviously listened to your gut, which is, I think, something that's like so unbelievable and such an important tool to remember that your gut is very, it's very honest. It will not lie to you. And if you can really tune in, you can see like what's good for you too.
Yeah. And I felt that. I just thought, you know what, actually, Sass, you've had such an amazing like time of it where you've known what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's not normal for everyone. Not everyone goes, I know I've come into this life to do this.
At 13.
Yeah, at 13.
Or 11, really.
You know, and I had felt from a very early age that I was this kid that was like an overachiever. And that is who I was to a certain point.
Yeah.
And I think I strapped a lot of my identity to that and to being this like overachiever. And suddenly I felt like I was not that. And it was really scary. I felt like some of the things that I achieved were like way in the past. And like, how am I clinging on to those? And it was really very hard for me to try and understand, like, where am I going now?
Yeah.
And so I thought about it for a while. And a part of me wondered if it was like lazy, being like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to not push myself to figure it out. I'll figure it out in time.
Yeah.
But actually, I really needed a bit of space.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of space to be with myself and to understand where I wanted to go next. And I kind of just knew that when it was right, I would feel it and I'd be ready for it. And I think I'd been pushing so hard with work for so many years, literally since I was like 15.
Yeah.
that I needed a little bit of time to actually just recalibrate and be okay with the fact that actually my work was not my worth.
Yeah.
And that's what that period of time did for me.
Yeah, what an important thing to realize.
Yeah, it made me completely reset my understanding of how I tied the person that like is running the business, is on Instagram, is telling you what I've done, to actually the person that I am.
Yeah.
And all those things had kind of come to a head because I had this wonderful community around me. I had incredible friends. I had a business that I had built and was proud of.
Yeah.
But throughout all of it, the highs and the lows of work were very much tied with my self-worth.
Yeah.
And I was able to reset that and actually decide that like I've only got this life that I know of.
Yeah.
and I want to make sure that like I am not building something for my ego. Like I want to build something that I feel is very valuable to me. It feels like something that I'm giving.
Yeah.
And is just aligned with the parts of me that knows that ultimately like I don't really care if I achieve this or that. Like that's going to be a single moment.
Yeah.
Actually, what do I want my life and my life's work to look like?
Yeah.
And that's what I was really sitting there and contemplating. And during that time, like I did, and I continue to do jobs that still inspire me in different ways. Like I do lots of storytelling for wellness brands and storytelling with marketing and building up their brand and all that stuff that I am very, very passionate about. But it was actually nice to go away and do that for a while, actually to do other brands' work.
Yeah, not your own.
Not my own.
Yeah.
And that actually really helped me disassociate from the front-facing stuff.
Yeah.
And actually realizing that I'm an extremely private person too.
Yeah.
And like the kind of head-to-head of that with like trying to do things on social.
Yeah,
and
you were
like
exposing yourself, but you also didn't want to at all.
Yes, and also kind of exposing parts, but not everything.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And like leveling that up. And I think I went through that journey pre and then during the pandemic of realizing what I feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
And kind of just growing up. I think I was becoming much more of the person that I am today with the opinions that I have and the mind that I do now, and just actually taking a bit of time to let all those things settle.
Yeah. I feel like that's such an important thing to realize that, you know, we go, and we're also told to go to school and then college and then figure out your job and then continue and then retire.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a very, I think, societal way of thinking. But in fact, I feel that sometimes taking pauses and, you know, like you were saying during the pandemic when we were all pretty much forced to take a pause, to really slow down, it really gives you a perspective of your life in a way that you've never been able to see just because you can breathe and take a second in. Yeah. When you don't realize that when you're just going and hustling, you don't give yourself the chance to breathe. And it's also because you were trying to build, you know, a platform for yourself, and you're your own boss. So that's, I'm sure, extremely challenging.
And isolating again.
Yeah, because
I literally built a job for myself that reflected many of the things that I very much disliked about my childhood.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. But you've confronted it in a way that like has brought you to people. So you've kind of been able to marry and tie what, you know, the insecurities and what you didn't like in your childhood into your job, but also because you're good at it, because you can do things alone very well. Yeah. But also to be able to, like, you know, work with me as a business partner and also make so many friends in the work industry as well. And, you know, kind of do like a type of mixture of your childhood and not.
It is interesting because actually, you know, that was, I think, one of the biggest reasons I felt, I know this is jumping back, but I just realized now one of the biggest reasons I felt isolated also in my later teens when I was running Naturally Sassy is I was also operating in a world with people 10, 20 years older than me and pretending to be so much older. I was the biggest elephant in the room was how old are you?
You were like, okay, I'm just going into this meeting, but I can't tell them that I'm 16.
Yeah, it was honestly ridiculous.
I'm actually 21. And I was like, yeah, you look 21, Sassy, totally.
It was, for the longest time, my age was like, I was scared people would ask me because I felt like it would devalue what I could bring to the table. And I was very confident in what I could bring to the table. But
and you were mature.
Yes.
So, you know, you had opinions that were formed that you really believed in. Like, you were always, like, I remember, I mean, still today, but as a little Sassy, you were such an entrepreneur already and just like so curious and excited to do so many things.
Yeah.
And so wide-eyed of the beautiful world and just like wanting to create. And so I'm sure that was like such a challenge to be so young and you're not there yet.
Yeah.
To be able to be taken like an adult.
Yes.
Seriously,
Oh
like
my
an adult,
goodness.
because you weren't.
Yeah.
But you like mentally were.
Yeah.
And you were it was such an interesting contrast, and obviously I got to see you grow up. And so interesting to see, like, whenever anybody asked me about you, I was like, Sassy is like one of the most mature people I know, and she's much younger than me, or like a few years younger than me, and we just kind of went into life like coexisting but at the same pace, but I'm a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
And it's because you've just been so mature your whole life and so eager to, I think, just like create things, which is so special.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, so we have, like, you asked me the spotlight, series on your life. So what are the three, we'll narrow it down to three because I know there's probably a million, but what are the three things that jump out to you that were like your spotlight that changed or pivoted or was a super important anchor or something in your life that really formed you or changed your mindset?
It's so funny because you ask other people this question and then it's put on you and you go, oh my goodness, how do I choose three moments, and actually what are moments that feel poignant enough? I think that the moment I spoke about when I was actually trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and writing down actually everything in my life that I wanted to bring into my life more. And I think a big part of that was I wanted to work with somebody that I loved and that I could bounce ideas off, and actually realizing I want a partner in this.
Yeah.
And like even if my work doesn't do anything, if I can spend the rest of my days trying to create something with my best friend, incredible. That has pivoted so much for me because it just was aligning the things that I knew I needed to bring into my life more. I don't want to be alone in business. I don't want to be doing this alone. Like I want to share this because it's fun and it's exciting.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And like I want to be ideating and creating these things, but I don't want to just be doing it and then like doing it on my own, because that shifted for me, this idea that it's about my self-worth.
Totally.
And it's actually more about building something that I'm really proud of with you.
Yeah.
Like that's the special thing.
Yeah, it's so special.
It's special without anything more happening.
Yeah.
And that for me within creating my own business has been huge. I think that in the last like 2 years, I have really understood in such a bigger way like how to be gentle with myself and kind to myself.
Yeah.
And it's not one moment that's created this, but it's a series of moments.
Okay.
And I think I can really think about a few where I wasn't kind to myself. I was constantly critical of like the things that I was doing, and it was really the same moment, like the same kind of time of, sitting in that scary space, like
Totally.
Figuring out what I'm going to do next.
So hard.
And I remember my parents both, they are so passionate about their work and also making sure that I'm passionate about mine, and kind of them seeing me not passionate anymore was really hard, but I knew that I needed to be there. So I think that really changed a lot, because it also allowed me to understand that sitting in spaces that I'm uncomfortable in is really important for me.
Totally.
Hugely important for me.
Yeah, I totally second that.
So that was two. I know that was the same period, but it taught me two very different things.
Yeah.
And the third moment that feels like a very big spotlight at the moment is when I was 7, I got into a very bad car accident. And I felt completely out of control.
Yeah.
Because I was 7, my mum was driving down the road and we went into another car. We kind of toppled down a hill, ended up upside down in kind of steam. And it was a dream and a reality that I replayed for years and years after. And it led me to be so scared of driving. And obviously in this situation it's driving, but it actually put a lot of limitations on my life, because even though I was 7, I didn't want to get into a car or have my mum drive me for about a year. I then didn't want to drive myself as an adult, push myself to do it. Very sadly got into another car accident, reaffirming that driving was not for me. And a big part of my identity, truthfully, to all of my friends is like, she doesn't drive.
Yeah.
I think that people would describe me as like, Sass, she's this, she's that, she's the other. Oh, she doesn't drive. Like, that was always a part of my identity. And I went to therapy for the first time for driving about a year ago.
Amazing.
Really thought nothing would happen from it, genuinely. I mean, I've tried a lot of things.
Yeah.
And actually thought nothing happened at the time. When I went to therapy, I was kind of like, this was a means to an end. I just had to repeat what happened a million times.
Yeah, right.
But actually, I can now drive. So it's been
Incredible.
the most remarkable shift. And I'll tell you why it's changed so much in my life is it has completely transformed my idea of what I can achieve.
Yeah. You've overcome something that was so probably all-encompassing all-encompassed by fear.
Yeah.
Like whole body fear.
Whole body
you've overcome
fear.
it.
Like I could feel the pain in my body from these very traumatic car accidents. Yeah. And I had just set myself as, I don't need to drive. Like, I live in LA. Like, it's a crazy city. You need to drive in LA. I'm fine. I'll just take Ubers. Oh, it's actually kind of nice because, I get to text and like, it costs the same, blah, blah, blah. All these excuses to make it feel okay for me.
Yeah.
But now as I can drive, I'm like, I feel so free having achieved something I never thought I would. I'm suddenly looking around at other things I'm afraid of. Yeah. And I'm realizing that from that experience where I felt so out of control, I realize now that a lot of my life is about control. And I think it all stems from that, like having to make sure that everything in my life is controlled in a way that I feel like I won't be in danger.
Yeah.
And actually pushing past that has been really important for me.
Yeah. I think that's the most beautiful, profound thing to realize of yourself because I've seen it. And I'm so happy that you've realized that in yourself too, because, that was such a big catastrophic moment for you, a couple moments in your life that were very traumatic, and you can overcome that. Like, you have so much strength in yourself and as a human, and, your whole journey has led you to be such a strong woman and independent too. And this is just feels to me like with this new year of driving, it was like your newfound independence and freedom in yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like freed you like a bird, just being able to spread your wings and go to places you never knew. Yeah. And it also, like you're saying, when you accomplish, overcoming one insanely difficult fear, you can realize that you can take the steps to just, like you say, feel the other fears and be uncomfortable, but also maybe take steps to understanding why you're fearful or how you can overcome those fears,
Completely. And actually just realizing that even if you have decided that you're not going to overcome that, be open-minded. Yeah. If I wasn't even slightly intrigued that it might happen for me, I wouldn't have gone to therapy. Yeah. And had I not just trusted in something that, even though I didn't think it was going to work, had I not gone and done it, I wouldn't be in a space of realizing, wow, like, this has given me so much freedom. And it's incredible that that's happened for me. So that it would be one of my big spotlight moments because it just comes to, so many other things.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely the most proud of you. Yeah, and I think you're the best person ever.
I appreciate it.
And I could go on and on and on, but I think we will finish up our podcast for this episode right now, and then we're going to definitely have to talk more because we could go on for hours.
We could go on for hours.
Just for our life experiences and see,
Yeah, we chat all the time anyways. But it's so fun chatting to you about all these things because I realize as I do it, I'm like, we talk about all the things and we go deep all the time. We're like, everything could be a podcast episode with us. But I think both of our journeys are so similar in the sense that like the introspection and letting yourself feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
That has been my biggest lesson is actually in the uncomfortable. So much is born. And I have done that a few times in my life and in my career, and it has been so fruitful. So I think that like that has been one way that I've allowed myself just to be a little kinder over the years. Is not push myself to be perfect and be okay with where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. It's something that I definitely strive for as well. Well, thank you for speaking to me.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Grace Informed podcast. This episode was produced by Indiana Woodward, Megan Elsie McNally, and me, Saskia Gregson-Williams, and edited by Megan Elsie McNally. This season of the podcast was sponsored by our partners at Discount Dance.
If you're really loving the show, it would be wonderful if you take a moment to rate and review us. It helps other ballet lovers find our pod and lets us bring you even more episodes. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Have thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore? You can find us on all social media platforms as Grace and Form Studio. Drop us a message. If this episode has got you itching to move, oh, do we have the app for you. Download the Grace and Form app today and start your 7-day free trial. Whether you're a seasoned dancer or just starting out, there are ballet classes and dance-inspired workouts for everyone, no matter the level. Come join our community of dance lovers and experience the joy of movement for yourself. Again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take a deep breath in, be gentle with yourself, and always keep moving forward.